Disclaimer, there's a long conversation of fuck all.
What's up guys, got a bit of a different video for you today. Today, me and Owen Atkinson, who's a BDC Pro 2 driver, we're heading down to have a chat with Mac Frost. You know, a lot of you know Mac, he's the owner of the BDC. So we're going to head down to BDC HQ, have a chat with him. You won't see me, Owen's going to be asking him a few questions. We're going to find out how he got into it, where he wants to go, what he has planned, and what he thinks of what's happened in the past year. So it could be a bit of a long video, but sit back and enjoy it. I think you'll like it. And there's some bloopers at the end. We're going on a mini adventure today, aren't we, Owen?
We are, Rob.
We have just arrived at BDC HQ. Brownies. Let's go see what these guys are doing.
We're here at BDC HQ today. Owen Atkinson, Pro 2 driver, and a good friend of mine has come down. They basically wanted to do a little bit of an interview because we talk a lot and he says there's a lot of things that I say privately that I haven't said publicly, so he's going to ask me some questions. I don't know what the questions are, so we'll see how awkward and intense they get, but yeah, just a little bit of fun, a little bit of hopefully a look into what the process of buying the championship was like, what it's like running it, what we're doing in the future, and maybe some other stuff as well. So yeah, let's go.
I am Mac, so it's good to be here with you, and ultimately I have to ask, how's your hand?
God, I'm just soldiering through it one day at a time.
For those that don't know, Matt cut his hand on a tin of beans yesterday, and he's complained about it non-stop all morning, so we had to ask that question. But seriously, this is totally informal. As I said, we've talked a lot, right, over the last few years on you running the championship with Matt, buying the championship, where it's moving forward, obviously going forward through 2021 into 2022. So you do a lot of these, right? You do them yourself from a vlog perspective, but you never really have the informal people asking you the questions that you have no idea what I'm going to ask. So look, you don't have to answer everything. It'd be great if you do, but we'll see how we get on.
Okay.
So first of all, what took you from being a guy doing cave visits in the Peak District to now running a BDC Premier Championship in the UK?
So that's an interesting question. So yeah, before I worked in drifting, so before I was a BDC, I worked for Slide Motorsport, but prior to that, originally I worked in IT, so that's my background. I was an IT technician, and then I hated it and I left, and I wanted to do something else in my life, and I was trying to do creative media projects and different things, but I didn't always pay the bills, so I ended up working at Show Cave out in the Peak District. I loved the freedom of it, and part of, as I went forwards, I never wanted to be tied into like a 9-to-5 desk job again or do anything like that. And drifting, I had mates who have like drift cars, my friend Jimmy who works for BDC now on the gridding, and he had a 180, and we like to mess around with it and take it to car shows and do other things like that. So that brought me into drifting, and then it was actually the 2017 at Teesside when Slide did the suicide drift, where they went the opposite way around the track, and that was the first thing that I saw on the live stream that kind of I went, that's mental, like I want to be involved in that professionally. And I from the outside saw it that drifting was much bigger than it was, like because from my perspective, BDC was like this huge championship with presumably loads of money and all these drivers and teams and everyone's a professional, and then it's way more grassroots than that in reality. But that that attracted me to it though, because I thought it was going to be like this huge thing. And yeah, that's kind of what led me into it.
Brilliant. So you got into drifting with Jimmy, who obviously works for BDC now, as you said. And when was your first actual drift event that you attended, you went to, you saw the atmosphere, you got hyped about it other than a live stream?
So the first event I attended in person was the opening round of Drift Cup in 2018 at Rockingham, which was part of the Spring Matsuri that they had there, but I only went for the one day. I only went for the Drift Cup day, and I was on media, so we got hooked up on media for it and went down and filmed, and that was my first. So I never went as a spectator in person. I only went, by that point I worked for Slide and I was on media. And yeah.
Brilliant. So roll on a bit of time. Obviously, you've now bought the BDC. Like, we're quite far through the 2021 season.
Yeah.
You ran it as manager for Matt last year. What made you want to take on the BDC?
I didn't want to get a job. Like genuinely, like the number one thing for me when it was offered to me that the BDC was going for sale and I was the first person for it to be offered to, I literally went, well, what if I say no? And the answer to what if I said no was it was going to be sold to someone else, and they'd be said, Mac's really good, he runs it, he'd be great as the manager, but there was no guarantee of it whatsoever. So the number one thing was like, well, look, you know, I'm loving what I'm doing. Like, it's stressful and it's hard work, but I didn't want it to end. So that was my main motivation, was just to keep doing it. And then on the flip side of it, because I genuinely believed I could see where improvements could be made, and as well I felt like I was in a much more neutral position than Matt was with drivers and some of the industry people. So I just like kind of weighed it up, and it just made sense to take the risk and do it, and luckily it's gone pretty well. So
brilliant. So we've talked quite a lot, as I've said. Obviously, people can't see what's around BDC HQ, but to give a bit of a rundown, there's Inzi, Max Partners MX-5 over there. There's a lot of money spent in that. There's an R34 Skyline. Does everyone know about the other car, or is it official? Can I reveal what that is?
We can reveal it, yeah. We can reveal
so
it.
Chris Wright's old 350Z, as he's built it tucked away in the corner. So, you know, you've got a lot of toys here, and you definitely know where I'm leading with this, because you said this to me the other week, and it was the best quote ever. And that was, you bought the BDC because you like your toys, you like to spend your money on your toys, and this is just the biggest, the most expensive one yet. Yeah. Just give me a bit of thought process behind it.
Yeah, I'm like a real all or nothing person. I get very invested in things, and that's been from like things that I've done as hobbies, tattooing, drifting in this respect of having the championship. Like I really like to get into things like, and it's just become such a big part of my life. And yeah, whenever I have something like that, for me to make an investment into something, whether I'm spending money on like something to do for a weekend or to buy computer games or whatever I want, like I'll go all in if I want to go all in, and if I can. And luckily we were in a situation where we could make it happen, and we had the backing and the support to do it. So yeah, just went for it really. That's just who I am. Like and on the flip side of that, I am pretty quick to, if I get bored of something, I'll be like, oh, it's gone. Like, and that's not going to happen with this, because this is awesome. But like, yeah.
So it's 2021, not been without struggles.
Yeah.
Obviously, we started 2021. Everything changed a little bit from the UK drifting scene. Obviously, you've now got UKDC as well. How do you kind of cope with that, from having a rival championship and things that are happening from the kind of grander drifting spectrum in the UK?
It's been a hell of a year. It's been pretty wild. So I bought the business on January 4th. That was the day I signed all the paperwork and bought BDC. So that was like a week before it went public. I got home on my first night and went, Lindsay, I bought BDC, and then we got put into a national lockdown for like 3 months. So that was pretty daunting. And on the back of that, we knew UKDC had been announced before Christmas, and there was a big promise there with that. That looked like a real serious contender, and it was like, were people going to draw sides? What was going to happen? Nobody knew. So for me, I just said, look, I'm not going to worry about what anyone else is doing, because I can't control that. There's no worries or spend any time or energy on it, because I can't do anything about it. So every single person I spoke to, and I went well out of my way to speak to every single person I could, like I'm talking international drivers, grassroots drivers, like I just talked to people for the whole start of the year to get a feeling for where people were at. And people were very divided. People were really on the fence. You know, BDC's last season hadn't been 100% polished, but obviously it was in the middle of a pandemic where basically no drift events in the world ran for a whole year, and we managed to pull off some events, and they were good events as well. So, you know, you have to look and go, well, we have to improve on what's happened, and I'm just going to focus 110% on doing that, and then, like, as it's paid off massively for where we've developed and advanced, and then in the case of the championships, they haven't done so well, and I think it genuinely, like, and not taking a shot, I think it comes down to the work that goes into it. Like, genuinely think it comes down to the work that goes into it, because from January until round one, I would work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Like, and through the start of the year, even in lockdown, I was working 7 days a week from like morning till night, just planning, researching, developing, like, and yeah, that's so much time and energy that goes into it to build what we've built. So, long answer, but there you go.
No, that's good. And obviously, Dave had the championship pre-Matt.
Yeah.
His big thing when he sold the championship to Matt at Slide was he was his own competitor in this. He had IDC, he had BDC, he was doing everything else in the championships, and he had no real rival to contend against. Do you feel UKDC is now a rival? Do you welcome kind of the competition in the drift scene from that side?
Yeah, I like at the start of the year, I was happy to have someone to compete with. I spoke to Ian at the start of the year, and we both said that we can do something good for drifting to push it forward by having someone to compete with. On the flip side of it though, it's incredibly frustrating, and when you don't have a working relationship with another championship, you end up with things like date clashes, and you end up with things where you're fighting for the same drivers, essentially. The driver pool in the UK for pro level, it's not massive, and the drivers don't have massive budgets because there's a huge vacuum in sponsorship right now, so that makes it more difficult, and there are some frustrations there when you have someone who you're against. And yeah, I mean, obviously then we all know what happened for the later part of the spring, and where different podcasts and things came out, so that was hard to deal with, when you feel like you're trying to be civil with people, but then you get hostility, and I don't know, it made it a bit of a mess. But right now it doesn't feel like a rivalry anymore. It doesn't feel like that's on the same level as what we're doing, and I'm continuing to develop and innovate and still not really worrying about what anyone else is doing. So the plans that we're putting in place for next year, like, this is a starting block with what we're doing now, and we're just looking to push it a lot more, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So any championship that wants to compete with us will have to do better than what we're doing to be on that level. So yeah, welcome it for anyone who wants to, but it's what it is.
And obviously, we're sat here, we're supposed to be at Coventry this weekend. That was originally BDC round 3.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of fallout from the pandemic. How have you had to deal with things like this? Obviously, having to move round 3 to now be the Three Sisters round at the end of August, and the fallout, obviously, it's cost a lot of money, even the planning side of that, let alone not going ahead with it.
Yeah, okay, so the Coventry event, beginning to end, was a nightmare for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we were supposed to start the year with it originally. So first of all, we had to move it. We were working with a major stadium in Coventry. People can probably figure out what it was, I'm not going to say here, but we were working with a major like sports arena stadium, and we were going to be using sort of the car parks with the stadium as the backdrop, and custom built circuits, a lot like what used to be done at Rockingham, very similar to what was been done at NEC, but on a smaller venue scale. They were great to work with, but there was a lot of health and safety, there was a lot of different things, and then on top of that you're working with the council and other things as well. So moving the event when it was clear that it couldn't go ahead at the start of the year for COVID related reasons was a huge challenge. Took hours and hours of planning, working out, got a date for it, was happy with that. So we moved it once and felt safe, but then as the year kind of progressed, and with things kind of going up and down on the COVID front and our restrictions lifting, are they not, we just reached an impasse where budget wise it couldn't work. Like, the best case scenario on an event that was costing 100 grand to run was breaking even. That's like the best case that we'd come to with it, and we were still had worries about, like, one person comes to that event on the Friday when things are getting set up and there's some practice day, has COVID, tests, gets shut down, track and trace, whole event shut down, everything lost. That's like a 6-figure loss. That's not just a big loss, that's a BDC's over. We're broke, it's done. I'm incredibly out of pocket, like my dreams got my favourite toys broken, you know, so it's just a risk that you just can't take. So we had to cancel it. And I took that really hard on a personal level because my whole thing has been about the big show and about, you know, making things as extreme as we can, whether we're pushing the level of driving, whether we're bringing big screens and more entertainment and stunt bikes and autograss cars and whatever else we can throw into these events. So when you've got the pinnacle of that for your year, it's like your flagship, we're doing something new at a new venue, the one thing that's vaguely down south that we can get, like, so to cancel it crushed me. Like, it was so hard. Like, I was gutted about it for like weeks, like threw me totally off my game of what I should have been doing. And yeah, it was difficult. Like, it was really difficult to do. Like, the whole thing was super stressful, and I don't know. It gives me more hunger now for next year to keep pushing things and to do something bigger and on that level next year. Potentially not at that venue because of some logistical challenges you get there, but there's a few other things. We've got irons in the fire already. Actually working on the plans for next year at the minute, so it'll be good.
So moving on for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Big things, exciting things. Are you refocused following kind of your crush from Coventry and what we're doing for the next few rounds? Is there anything you can reveal that's going to excite us?
Yeah, so Three Sisters is next. That's a couple of weeks from now. I think it's going to be a slightly smaller driver grid than we've had all year, because when you get to that mid-season point, that sort of naturally happens. But I know I've got at least one European driver coming in for it now that we're starting to see some restrictions relaxed, which is hopefully going to set a tone for later in the year. So we've got a driver, we're trying to get some more entertainment put into it. Basically, Three Sisters is, from a spectator point of view, one of the best venues in the country, because you've got Luna, you've got the action, right up to the finish line with it. We're running a new line, so it's a line that has never been run in BDC before at Three Sisters, so that's exciting. And yeah, I mean, it's just all the bells and whistles that we throw at everything, so it's going to be cool. We're going back onto BDC Insider for the live stream. So fingers crossed everything's good there. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what the reaction is and how people from the public engage with pay-per-view content over free live stream. So it's going to be a little bit of a test. And then the thing I'm really, really excited for is going to be Teesside Night Fight. So back to the 2017 season when I was paying attention to BDC. That night fight event was absolutely savage. I loved it, always wanted to do it. We did Buxton at night in 2018 and saw some of the pros of doing stuff at night, like with the extra lights and the pyro fireworks, different things. So we're putting a lot into that, and I already am building up a very special driver grid. Like, I can without doubt say this is going to be the maddest driver grid BBC has seen probably since the end of the Dave Egan era, with the Rockingham event that they did.
Coming up for the 2022 season, that you're already thinking about how to grow it bigger, better, kind of push your biggest toy to the next level?
Yeah, 2022, I mean, there's the obvious things that everybody's crying out for, like a southern venue, like an actual southern venue. So we're hunting right now for something down south. It's probably not going to be a major track or anything like that down there, because I don't think we have the capability to get into one of those right now, but we're looking for kind of like a Rockingham-esque kind of car park, custom built arena sort of venue down in the south to do something down there. We're having a lot of conversations about Ireland. That's something that's been talked about since like 3 weeks after I bought BDC was when we started talking about Ireland. So will we be able to do something over there as either part of the BDC or as its own entity? And then, we do want to get onto a more well-known circuit or major track. So it might not be any of the stuff you see down south, like kind of like Silverstone or Brands or anything like that, but there are plenty of other options of smaller tracks, but still, proper tracks. So those are the three sort of things that we're mainly looking at for next year.
Awesome. I haven't got anything else I want to ask. I think we've probably made this long enough. You talk plenty, to be honest, Mac.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is good for people. They get a different side, questions unfiltered, kind of getting asked. I don't know. You'd be up for doing it again?
Yeah, 100%.
Later in the year, next
100%,
season.
and I really want to do like a public Q&A as well. So that's something that we're going to shoot, and we'll put something out on the Facebook and the Instagram to try and get some public questions, because we want to know what the fans want to know about everything going on in BDC. So yeah, 100% we'll do more.
Awesome.
Wicked.
Cheers, Mac.
Thanks for coming down, mate. Was that alright?
Brilliant.
Go on, carry on, mate.
I'm a fucking natural.
It's going to be 5 minutes, but you know how much Mac talks. I've only asked 3 questions.
Said I talk a lot. What's that behind me that I can see in shot? There's a skateboard. Oh, okay, that skateboard can be there, whatever. It's cool. Cool, I've got a skateboard. I'm down with the kids. Can I just complain a lot about how I cut my finger?
Nah, I'm really meaning it, by the way.
Let me sit up a bit. Might want to call getting me comments and be like, Mac, you're slouching. Three Sisters kickflip competition. When track closes, we're going to get the skateboard out, go on track.
You're not
Everyone gets one turn. Whoever does the best kickflip gets 100
Right,
quid
what's
cash.
going
What are you doing, Linz?
That's how you do it.
The best bit is the GoPro's capturing all of this.
Alright, that's not ideal.
I haven't said fuck anyone, so we're alright.
Nah, mate, it's all man.